its new digital technologies are going to be effective solutions to combat this whole crisis that we are going through. So with these words, I would like to switch on to my, I have a presentation on this. So I'll talk this up. So share content should work, I suppose, right? Okay. Is my presentation visible?
Yeah, he's about to come, sir. Yes.
It's visible on my screen.
Yeah, I'll confirm, sir, when it is visible. It might take few more seconds.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. It is still coming. Might take few more seconds.
Okay.
Actually, there is a overlay on the screen, so you can move up, and come back to the screen, sir.
Yeah.
There is some system overlap.
Yeah.
You may
Okay.
You stop and
change
share
one
again.
slide.
I'll stop the sharing and do it again.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Content.
Now you share, sir, again. I think, yeah, now it is started coming.
Okay now?
No, sir, not yet visible. Shows not yet, sir.
On my screen, I can see it. Vignesh, can you see this?
Able to see it, sir. Actually, there is a lot of pixels on the presentation. I can see the bottom, the footnote, but I'm not able to see the main screen, sir. So just move one slide forward and see if it's working, sir.
Yeah, I've moved one slide forward.
Okay. So
one more slide forward.
No, sir, nothing happening.
Share content is the right way to do it, right, on WebEx?
Sorry, sir?
On WebEx, sharing is by share content, right?
Yes, sir. We need to just share content. Your PPT will be there. You just to double click. Yeah, it is. Again, I think now Vignesh is sharing like his PPT. And now see it is there. So maybe I think, sir, your slides content is there. So one option you may again try, or you may break your PPT in two parts. So, that could be one of the reason. I'm just wondering, Dr. Vignesh.
Okay, Vignesh, you pull it down. Let me try again.
You stop, Dr. Vignesh. Yeah. Yes, sir. Now you can.
Can you see this?
No, not yet, sir. It shows something is coming, but.
Sandeep.
Yes,
check,
sir.
HPPT is open or not?
No, sir. We are not, sir, is open on his machine, but we are not able to see here.
I'm seeing it on my screen, but
maybe, sir, I think because of number of more slides, that could be one of the reason I feel.
No, it can't be.
Huh? Okay.
That can't
may not be there, sir. Sir, will you mind if you can send that presentation to me? I can run it for you. Maybe you can speak about it.
Okay, I can do that. Not a problem.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
It'll take a while, but
yeah. Just send it to me. I will quickly.
Digital world, interesting.
You never know when this glitch will come.
Just give me 2 minutes. Let me share this with Vignesh. I've sent it, Vignesh.
Yes, sir. I will just.
Let me do something. Now that I've sent the presentation to Dr. Vignesh, he will take care of it. He is certainly a lot more competent in technology-wise. So let me start talking. It's not everything that needs the presentation. So thank you again for the patience, participants. I think this still is the digital life we are trying to live with. Now, to talk about National Digital Library of India, the first thing that I would like to remind you of, which all of you are certainly aware to a good extent, is that the key requirement of any country today, specifically a country like India, is the availability of education at any point of time, anywhere. I mean, all kinds of education, all different depths of that, all different cross section, and so on. So, with that, with that requirement, what has been starting to happen is yes, great. Now can you see it, everybody?
Yes, sir. We all can see. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Vignesh. Thank you. So it must be something wrong at my end. Okay, so please, if we could go to next slide. Next one. Yeah. So this is what I was talking of, that any country and very much more so of India needs a quality lifelong education knowledge for all of us. You know, that's the key point. Next, please, Vignesh. So this is a kind of background in which NDLI was getting started. There was in 2014 a study by FICCI and MHRD jointly as to trying to assess that study was specific for higher education but applies almost everywhere. If every student in eligible for higher education really needs to get that education so that we can get a very effective manpower in our country. If that is to be done using the traditional ways of education, having colleges, universities, institutions, and so on, then what would be the resource requirements? And so the study focused on all of that and came out with certain startling facts that if you consider a 20-year period, 20-year period is a typical time when a kid is born and then kind of in 20 years has kind of got into the higher education bracket. So if you look into the 20-year period and want to get all eligible Indians educated, then for each one of the month of those 20 years, that is 240 months, every month India needs to set up 270 colleges and 6 universities. You can think of 240 months consecutive, and every month you are setting up 6 universities and 270 colleges. If you can do that, then you can physically educate all of these. That is what the kind of mathematics that a country like India has. And certainly that tells us that brick and mortar is not the ideal way to go. Of course, in 2014, nobody was thinking about restrictions as of COVID or SARS or anything. It was just a physical impracticability of direct face-to-face education that was haunting us. So the under NMEICT, as Dr. Pandey rightly pointed out, this NDL project was getting started to make best use of the digital technology, and also in keeping with the spirit of open and inclusive digital ecosystem. Open in the sense that, we want everything open now. I mean, it's not as least of restrictions as possible. If I have something, I should be able to make it available to someone. The more and more, particularly education, the learning that we need, that must be open. And this is not only necessarily means free. Some open stuff could be free, some may not be free, but openness is a basic requirement. It should be open software, open knowledge, open books, etc. And also the inclusivity is a big factor for a country like India, which, I mean, these are the kind of parameters which guided us while working through the National Digital Library of India proposal and then subsequent execution. It has to be inclusive in terms of actually, different languages that we have. We have more than 22 languages in terms of different domain areas, subject areas, in terms of different levels of education and so on. So with all these, basic drivers, the National Digital Library of India was conceived as a knowledge repository, educational learning platform, and along with a cultural asset, because that's also another factor that we need to look at in terms of our national requirement. Next, please. So this is typically, this diagram is a typical digital ecosystem that has been emerging for India for a long time. On one side, we are to create the National Digital Library of India, which is a repository of knowledge. So you have kind of variety of forms of knowledge which are accessible over internet, over mobile, and so on. On the other side, there's a whole lot of online access mechanisms, online classes, courses, commonly called MOOCs, massively open online courses. Now it has taken a variety of different dimension, because over time, the necessity of being massive in different senses become different. But the basic fact is you can get education, and you can get certified for that education in a completely online form. We have SWAYAM particularly doing very, very well here in this space, where it's primarily the education is over internet. This is supplemented with DTH TV-based education in terms of SWAYAM Prabha and those channels. We have put automated TV transfer between MOOCs and other more formal university mechanisms possible. So kind of we are all together talking about a complete digital ecosystem, of which National Digital Library of India is to play the role of a persistent entity. Courses come and go. Courses start at July, ends at November, or starts in January, ends at March, and so on. But the content that gets generated, the videos, the assignments, the different notes, and all that needs to get perpetuated over a certain mechanism, which is actually the digital library we are talking about. Next, please. So this brings in the some of the key parameters of a digital library. It is, as you all, these are just for a quick recap so that we are on the same plane, but you all understand that it's a 24/7 enabled infrastructure, should cover all academic levels, disciplines, languages, different domains, and broadly can be either a collection by itself, that it also maintains the content itself, or it could be a mixture of a direct collection and a kind of an aggregation, kind of a discovery service where it harvests metadata from different repositories and then puts them all together in terms of a certain smart search mechanism. There should be different user interfaces, special mechanisms for helping those who have disabilities and so on. So that's the kind of objective which set up the National Digital Library of India. The other dimension which is proved to be very interesting is the range of contents. in library, we have a certain range of contents. I'm sure libraries started with things like books and articles, and then diversified into having a whole lot of different kinds of contents like maps, like statistics, reports, and so on. When you go digital, this dimension gets even wider. So, I mean, in different parts here, I'm trying to show the variety of range of contents that National Digital Library of India has been focusing on. On one side could be very standard educational material like lecture slides, classes, courseware, term papers, or even question banks, model answers, and so on. On the other, it could be more of the scholarly collections of varied kinds, including some very interesting kind of things like data sets. Data sets are becoming very important as collections. So these digital libraries like National Digital Library of India should have collections of pointers to collections of data sets, manuscripts, even cultural artifacts like paintings, sculpture, different audio, video contents, different kinds of simulations, games. So, digitally, the whole sense of the library becomes a lot more pervading, and that's what is a vision of National Digital Library of India. Next, please, Vignesh. So this is what National Digital Library of India is. It is kind of what you say, one library, all of India, one library for everything. As of now, it contains about 4.8 crore, that is about 48 million content records. Mind you again that in NDLI, not many contents are physically contained in NDLI. NDLI works through a broadly partnership-based model where there are source partners who actually provide the content, and NDLI harvests the metadata from those contents and builds up the common search base on which these contents can be explored. So that number is about 4.8 crore, which is not a small one. And out of this 4.8 crore, about 3.5 crore of content records point to contents which are open and free, which means that irrespective of what an individual is, I mean, whether you are at home or in your institute, or you are a student, or you are a teacher, or you are just a professional, irrespective of any of that, about 3.5 crore content one would be able to access without any wall or without any payment requirements. Remaining few, about 1 to 1.5 crore contents, have different kinds of closed behavior, also depending on being publisher contents, or contents that are accessible within institutional networks only, and so on. And as of now, there are about 30 lakh active registered users. And I will talk a little bit more about the COVID time situation and growth. But as of the present, as of the last, I can say about 4 or 5 weeks, our daily rate of hit is about 1 lakh. 100,000 hits happen to the library on a daily basis, which is, I mean, kind of 100,000 document views are not small in any of the digital entities. So that's a basic NDLI we are talking about. Talking about the core features, what does this library contain? Before I go into the depth, it's a 24/7 library, which is an umbrella digital library. I say umbrella digital library because, as I mentioned, it is not physically collecting the digital contents and putting them together. More a virtual collection through associations and metadata interrelationships. So, but it provides you a centralized search database to do that. It's a single window search browse. So through one window, you'll be able to access, locate all contents. All will be presented there. We will see several glimpses of that. It covers all academic levels. I mean, as we say, KG to PG, I mean, loosely, but it's actually for lifelong learners, everybody in all disciplines. Of course, in different specific domains, we continue to build different verticals. A vertical is specific kind of collections or collection of collections which relate to a certain requirement or a certain set of users. Like we have verticals on school, we have vertical on, say, different subject domains like engineering and so on. And we also have verticals which are very interesting, like the most recent vertical that we have created, the recent two verticals we have created. One is on COVID research. I'll talk more about that. That's very interesting. What's happening in terms of COVID research. The other vertical we have, the last one we launched was on CBSE examination preparatory. So for the students who are preparing for class 10 and class 12 examinations for CBSE. So these are different verticals that NDLI talks about. And it holds naturally a wide variety of multimedia contents besides text and normal video, audio. There are about more than 70 different types of media contents that are currently hosted in NDLI. It has a national licensing mechanism for some where ministry nationally pays for certain contents which everybody in India can use free if he or she is using it through NDLI. And there, of course, we will have mechanisms to work with different institutional digital repositories on that. Next, please. So certainly this kind of a dimension of a library does have a privilege of having a number of unique features and reach. Naturally, it is trying to target a whole spectrum of learners in India. It can handle contents of any language almost. Currently, it has contents of about 300 languages, which is a tall order. India needs a number of language interfaces. So continuously we keep on adding new and new language interface. For example, we have 10 interfaces right now in Hindi, Gujarati, Marathi, and so on. And some few more are being worked on. There is a lot of personalization that is available for the users, that you can custom your stuff based on your requirement and so on. As of now, it is the sources. There are more than 270 sources who have contributed to make up for this 4.8 crore content records. So there are small sources, big sources, but those are about 270 source partners of different libraries, different collections, publishers, and several private and several others. Of that, there are about 120 which are institutional. So IDArts, 120 IDArts participate in this. About 30 lakh user I talked about, and about 15,000 user institutes are currently involved. Those who have registered as user institute and collaborate with NDLI, particularly from user perspective. Okay, so that's on the way we got some awards here. I would just like to state for a correction on here is in my introduction it was said that M. Billioneth Award was won by me. I would like to correct, it's not. It was won by the NDLI team. So it happened to come in my name because I had made the application on behalf of the team. So, but the award was not meant for me as an individual, it was meant for the NDLI team. So both M. Billioneth as well as Gems of Digital are actually team awards for the, I mean, it is a nameless team award for the entire team which has worked on this. Next, please, Vignesh. Okay. So this is just a glimpse of how it looks. The whole library is available as a web application. So it can be, you can get into any browser and get there. So what you see on left is a view of the web application, and there are two URLs on which it is available. Two URLs are used, as you can understand, for the purpose of redundancy, that in case two URLs, one is hosted in Kharagpur, other is hosted in Kolkata. So in case one goes down, the other can still continue to provide the service, like it's rerouted. And besides the web application, NDLI is available also on the mobile app. So it's available both on the Android. It can be downloaded from Google Play Store, and it is available from for iOS from the Apple stores, iPhone store. Now, if we could we have be on the previous one, Vigneshji, for a while? Okay. So if you come here, you'll see that this is what you have different bands, and those are primarily the different verticals that I was talking of. So on the left top corner of the screen, you see browse and search. Those are the two basic mechanisms that you can search with any keyword. You can refine that search, and Dr. Vignesh, when he introduces the actual, how to use part of the library, we will talk more about that. But you can actually give any keyword and search based on that. That's one core way to use. The other is to be able to browse by using different sources and so on. But what we centrally show are basically the different collections. Those are the different verticals on which people could actually focus on. So on the first top band, the kind of the orange kind of band that you see is study at home. This was created, these bands were typically organized during the lockdown period. So study at home was created for students to study during this lockdown period, and has proven to be very popular. The next band, which is in deep green, is on the COVID repository. So we'll talk a little bit more on that. And then there are featured collections. Let's go to the next. So this is a view just showing that I talked about there are interfaces in different languages. So it just, you can choose the language, and the moment you choose the language, all writings and all that change to that language. So you can see that. So there are some screenshots of Bengali, Hindi, and so on. There are 10 of them. Now, naturally, the heart of this whole system is the mechanism of metadata. Since I'm talking to a group of learned librarians, I do not need to really explain. In many of the presentations, I need to start explaining why metadata and what is metadata. Certainly, that will not be necessary here. So I would just like to mention that NDLI does have a metadata schema, which is kind of interesting in two ways. One is it is a multi-profile schema, which means NDLI is trying to keep content of all kinds. And as you know that there are varied kinds of metadata that are possible. That exist. The varied designs exist. You have multiple different standards like Dublin Core and so on. So when from NDLI perspective, when we looked at it, we saw that, well, every metadata standard or a large number of metadata standards deal with different perspectives of dealing with the content. So for example, if you're talking of Mark 21, you say that, well, this is a metadata standard which is talking more significantly for what the publishers will primarily use. We are talking about Dublin Core, you're talking more specifically about identifying a content in its uniqueness and defining its inherent intrinsic properties of the content. But when you are talking about, say, IEEE's LRMI, Learning Resource Metadata Initiative standard, you are talking more in terms of how to learn from a particular content. So there are different types of metadata standards available. So in choosing the standard that NDLI use, we have taken a multi-standard model, where from different standard we take a small profile. So we take a small part of Dublin Core, which is relevant for us. So these are core things like author, the year of publication, title, keywords, and so on. Whereas similarly from LRMI, we choose a few things like, say, like what is the pedagogic objective. So those kind of, and take those profiles and then stitch them in a way so that in vSpace, which is our, and put all these different profiles together into an uniform namespace structure. I'm just trying to give a few specific details here because I'm talking to a set of library professionals at this time. So
Yeah.
that is, proven to be pretty useful till date, and we can continue to expand on this metadata standard further as we take on more and more. Vigneshji, could you go to the next slide? Okay. So this is just a glimpse of the kind of content which are available. I said there are 4.8 crore content, of which about 3.5 crore are kind of free content. So of that, this is kind of the profiling. So there are about more than 60 lakh books. 60 lakh, it's a huge number. So if you if you look at a big library, like I'm from IIT Kharagpur, so we have a big central library, and Dr. Shutrathar, many of you, I'm sure, really know him. He certainly very rightly can boast that we have more than 200,000 volumes in that library, so which is 2 lakh volumes, and naturally, digitally, the scale goes different. And NDL has about 60 lakh books, which are digitally freely available. So anybody can come and download them, read them, and use them. About 1.77 crore articles, which like journals, over 6 lakh theses, and so on. So there's a wide variety of free contents to a good extent available here, which can be made use of in the learning process. Next, please. So given this, let me a little bit focus on the different services, specific verticals that we have been working with. So let me just give you a little perspective of what changed. Even though we have been working on this project for last 5 years, and that's how we could connect to so many of the organizations and collate so much of content. But when the lockdown started happening in late March, early April, naturally we are faced with a very different kind of a situation. I would say that before this lockdown, it was kind of people have been doing education in physical forms. Many of us understood the value of going digital, the value of going online, value of doing learning more. But the acceptability has been limited because you have the option of doing physical. So obviously we'll not do an online class, right? But the lockdown was a reality which became very different, where digital or online stopped being another alternate. It became the only possible life thread. That is the thread that could bind everything together, that could make that we can still continue to work together in this in our respective space. That's how I did about in total in this 5 years I've done at least 60 to 70 face-to-face workshops. But before this lockdown, we probably did maybe 5 webinars, 6 webinars. But in this last 2 months, I've done more than 20, 25. So that kind of change brings in the fact that now you know that digital is the way you'll have to survive, online is the way you'll have to survive. So you structure your whole thing in those terms. So the first thing that we wanted to restructure and enrich NDLI with is to come up with verticals that people would need. So the first vertical we took our hand at was for study at home, where in different domain segments, we put together collections of contents which the people of that domain or learners of that domain would more frequently, more easily need. So one such is for school students, which is a study at home vertical, the school segment, where we put together video lectures, we put together preparation material for entrance examination like the joint entrance, JEE. We put together very specific collections of question papers, model answers, tutorials, solutions, videos for CBSE class 10, class 12 examination. So kind of we started realizing that instead of thinking of NDLI as a repository or as a mere library which reacts to the need of the user, when the user would come and say, okay, I'm looking for this, I'm looking for a Resnick Halliday solution for class 11, 12, and then you search out from the library, you kind of turn the table around and provide that as a service. So where you work out that if you are a class 10 student, if you are a class 12 student, if you are aspiring for an entrance examination, if you're aspiring for a placement examination in UPSC and so on, you just come and look for that vertical segment in the library. And the library has used a number of SMEs, subject matter experts, and available contents within and outside the library that collated the free contents, wherein it gives you an offering for getting prepared in your required way. So it's you are no more searching from amongst 1 crore, 2 crore, 3 crore contents. You are just looking within a very curated set of collection, which pertains specifically to your requirement. So that's the whole idea of special services, and that's what started proving to be very, very interesting to people. Next, please. So here, what you are seeing are some of the glimpses of these. For example, this is another in the study at home, which is for the JEE preparation, joint entrance examination. So in this, we did create something even more interesting. We have created, DLI has created, and I would say that's a little bit going beyond the library domain, but bringing it closer to the user in terms of the learning domain, is we have created a NDLI tutor service. The NDLI tutor service currently on the JEE are providing solutions to last 10 years question paper. I think some for main we have I think 5 or 6 years, and for the advanced we have so this these solutions are interesting. To the aspect that this is not just a simple solution, which you'll find a number of solutions available for JEE papers and so on. But these solutions are special in two ways. One is the way they are organized are pretty hierarchical. So you could go and search them hierarchically from subject basis. You can search them out in terms of the year they were asked for, the particular paper they came in, and so on. So that's the hierarchy you see on the right. And the other very more interesting thing is the dimension of the different. So the entity you are focusing on here is a question. Now that question has a set of answer keys, a set of options, MCQ options, and then there is a solution. So typically this is what you'll find everywhere. So this is the correct answer. But then what NDLI tutor provides, it provides a solution explaining as to of the 4 options, why the option that is correct, why is it correct? And interestingly, it explains as to the 3 options which are wrong, why are they wrong? And what we have seen through analysis of various MCQ questions is your ability to do well in MCQ is not only in terms of knowing how to solve a problem, but also your ability to eliminate quickly what are not possible solutions. So if there are 4 options, typically 2 of the options typically are weak options. That is, it should be relatively easy to figure out that they are wrong. So there are 2 ways you can do the search. One is you are solving the problem, that is searching for the correct answer. And the other way is you are eliminating wrongs. So you are quickly finding out that these options cannot be right. So if you can quickly find 2 of them out, then your problem reduces from being 1 out of 4 to 1 out of 2. Right? So these are kind of very standard techniques which are given to students when they go to different tutorial homes and pay a lot of money to learn these techniques. So we have tried to, at least for all these 15 years of JEE questions of main and advanced, we have tried to create the question solution in that form, and we have given the corresponding reading material. If you have not understood the solution, you can jump on and read on that background material. You can look for similar problems to practice more and so on. So kind of we are providing a service showing that, well, this is how a tutor at a national level, at a kind of free service from the government, can benefit to the student. So NDLI at such points do not remain constrained to be in the domain of classical library or classical digital library. It is also going, picking up a lot of services that typically a public library would be doing in terms of helping the students, helping the readers, helping the users by providing the content in the right way as a form of a service. So that's what is a very interesting perspective to look at. Next, let's go to the next slide, Dr. Vignesh. Okay, so these are all different examples. So these are good collections we have made of video lectures. Then activity-oriented learning. There are a lot of teaching learning material types, TLM types, which really, ask you to carry out an activity. They are good in terms of practical, practice-oriented learning. They are good for setting up, student projects and so on. So these are the different learning pedagogies also we are trying to put together. Certainly that was talking more about the school stuff, but there's a lot in terms of college students, engineering, in terms of variety of integrating variety of different interesting, knowledge portals that deal with engineering education, starting with our own Swayam and Swayam Prabha, which we continue to integrate. There are several others, some from YouTube, some elsewhere else, which we have organized. And as you can see that we often do this kind of a hierarchical structuring so that it becomes easy for a student to locate the content, and then we guide them through this specific vertical oriented collection. Next one, please. So this is Swayam, which was erstwhile NPTEL for engineering. Okay, so let me just move on, and before I leave the stage to Vignesh, let me touch upon an initiative which happened in the last 2 months, and we are really very excited about this. We felt that, well, COVID is something, initially it felt that there'll be a lockdown for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then this crisis will go over. But soon, listening to different scientists and stakeholders, it was clear that COVID is, at least it's not going to go away completely in some. It's going to change the whole way we live our life, and it is kind of going to lead to different changes in the way our economy runs. So we understood that the most effective way to combat COVID is to invest in research. That's happening all across the world. You need to innovate, and that innovation is not limited only to look for a vaccine or for cure. Many people keep asking me that when is the vaccine around? Nobody has an answer. But what is very clear is, induced by all this, there is a lot of requirement of innovation, a lot of requirement of research, startups, and all that in various different areas. Including whether it's video conferencing, whether it's mobility estimation, whether it's transportation systems, as you can see that India is kind of trying to get back to a normal life in certain ways, and the biggest bottleneck is turning out to be the whole transportation system. Right, so there are different research requirements. So the basic thought was that, well, with so many different research happening all around, could we have a COVID specific research portal where we collect information about COVID research and put them together so that somebody who wants to use a library, as say, suppose somebody who is interested in a COVID research, and the COVID research does not only mean the medical research. I mean, I could be, I'm involved in a COVID research, which is basically trying to estimate how the density of COVID patients are changing. So that's a data science. So if you want to do that, then what kind of information would you expect from the library? So there are some of the key information areas, like certainly scholarly publications you look at, and there's a huge amount of publications in this area. I mean, I was amazed when I started working on this that the first COVID-related research paper that I could trace dates back to 1949. I mean, I did not know that COVID was so old. The first paper actually, which refers to COVID, was published in a journal in 1949. So that's about 70 years back, more than 70 years. But then, of course, in the last 6 months, there have been a huge surge of papers. So we have about 40,000 papers collected through different publishers and different other repositories, which relate to COVID research. Then a huge thing which is coming up of requirement is data sets. Like now you solve problems by actually examples. So several problems use data science for the solution. So you collect the behavior of a system on a huge volume of data, and you try to make a model from those data sets, and then you use that model on newer and newer data that come in. So it is very critical that if you have to do effective research in COVID, you need access to data set, and there are data set repositories which are coming up. So here we have about 200 references to different data sets across the world, which people have made open for COVID research. And of course, then all related things, the documents, you may have non-published documents from credible organizations, you'll have journals coming up with special issues. You need to know about those so that you can make publications to them. So the whole idea is you provide this as a special research service that the whole, I mean, initially I just had started looking for this because I was myself interested to know. And when I found that there was no such collection easily available, everybody talked about what they had, like Springer has a nice site, Taylor and Francis has a nice site, WHO has a nice site, John Hopkins Hospital has a nice site, all on COVID research, but everybody talks about just what they have. But we needed to build something which talks about in a collective form, and I didn't find anything across the world. So we created this, and we are regularly updating on that and so on. So that is another special services aspect that we. And what's very interesting is, I mean, when we did all these in terms of the last 3 months, creating all this study at home. Yes, Dr. Vignesh, you can keep going. We created study at home. We created all this COVID research, and certainly we saw a very positive traction in terms of the National Digital Library of India. Say in March, before we started doing this, our daily, hit document view used to be about 20,000 per day. We were happy about that. 20,000 is not a bad number. But after we did this, our average now, the National Digital Library of India's average document rate is more than 1 lakh. So it has gone up 5 times, which show basically that, well, as a National Digital Library of India, we are becoming a lot more relevant by providing these special services. And there have been days when within a 24 hours period, we had more than 3 lakh hits to the library. So that's that's what is the evolving site. I think I'm almost at the end. Would you go to the next, Dr. Vignesh? Okay, so these are some of the very specific usage oriented and education oriented stuff I talked of. Besides that, there are a lot of interesting features that are available in National Digital Library of India. We run a birth centenary of eminent personalities, so you have a whole lot of featured collection where you have various different personalities covered for the year on their 100th year of birth. So currently we are running it for Satyajit Ray, the Oscar-winning film director. He made 39 films in his career, and National Digital Library of India is the only collection which has all his scripts. I mean, he was not a trained filmmaker, so he used to do his scripts in his own way. And in a very interesting way, he will write down the dialogue, he will sketch out the actors, their entry, exit, costume, music scores, everything. And so like a wonderful possession of manuscript of all these 39 film scripts. So that is what we are featuring for the birth centenary. We feature something for a day, which is usually an interesting week for the person of the week. Typically, there are several people helping us in terms of building different aspects of this National Digital Library of India. So we recognize their contribution by putting them as showing them as a person of the week every week. So it keeps on changing on a weekly basis. We have a topic for the week also, on which we have more specific collections, talks, webinars, and all of that. So these are the different, all section of services that we have. So this has been a very live digital library, and it's growing. There are several other aspects of research and in-depth studies and so on, which I thought I will not go into that much of depth in this discussion. Rather, I would like to leave some time for the question answer. And I would also have Dr. Vignesh Varnamohan, who heads the South Center for us of NDLI and has been coordinating several webinars. And will talk to us about how to use. So I talked about what it has, but I think at the end of the day, what matters is how to effectively use it when you have such a big collection, when you have such a big repository of things to work with. Then also you need to little bit be accustomed to how you do the search, browse, and so on. So Dr. Vignesh will talk about those. Other than that, I can take questions on this. I do not know what the structure that NPLA would like to follow, whether I should do the questions now or we do the questions together.
Thank you so much, sir. We'll take the questions once Dr. Vignesh talk is over.
Oh,
so
sure.
Then we will take the question answer session.
Okay.
So thank you so much.
Close here and hand it over back to you.
Yes, sir. So thank you so much, Professor Partha, for very detailed presentation. And we thank you for covering about like digital ecosystem for education, range of content, metadata, special services available in NDLI, like as you mentioned, study at home for school students for preparing JEE examination. This is really helpful, and I have seen even in my campus kids, they are making a best use of this. And we also, sir, you shared about the developing a COVID-19 research resource repository. And let me tell you, sir, many of the libraries like us, we have took the data and you mentioned in the website, so and we given the link up also NDLI. So that is really, sir, we thank you for, and we also thank you for sharing about various other interesting services. So thank you so much, sir, for joining us with us. So we thank you for with these words. And now I request Dr. Prabhat Pandey, Honorable President MPLA, to take the proceeding forwards. Dr. Prabhat, over to you.
Thank you, Sandeep. Thank you so much, Professor Parth Das, for a wonderful presentation and guide the entire LIS professionals. And we are very much use of NDL resources, especially for school children, as well as colleges. So our next speaker is Dr. Bignesh Sarna Mohan. He will speak on NDLI, how to use, how to get most out of it. And before invite him, it is my duty to introduce him. Dr. Bignesh is currently the Chief Strategic and Outreach Officer, National Digital Library of India. He is also the founder of Brilliant IAS Preparator, a mobile-based low-costing training solution for the civil services aspirants. Earlier to this, he worked with the Indian Public Library Movement and CSC e-Governance Services India Limited. I also met him during IPLM conference. So Vignesh has managed large development projects like National Digital Literacy Mission, Cyber Gram Yojana, e-inclusion, IT training for rural SC/ST women beneficiaries, e-Vidya innovative project for rural women, women digital literacy project, child labor family linkage project, financial literacy awareness. So with these words, I invite Dr. Vignesh Sarna Mohan. Over to Dr. Vignesh.
Thank you, Dr. Prabhat, for the kind introduction. And thank you, Dr. Sandeep, for hosting us. And good afternoon, all the participants. Now, let's directly get into the presentation. My presentation is visible to all the participants.
Yes, Dr. Vignesh, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So I think Professor Das has made my presentation a bit easy because he has covered all the major macro part of the NDLI. So now I will quickly touch upon the micro part of National Digital Library of India. So primarily, why NDLI? So if you look at it, there are four primary reasons. The first is, if you look at in general, there is a reduction in financial as well as human resources for libraries, be it academic libraries or public libraries or research libraries. This has been the trend in the at least last few years, except very few institutions where the budget has been increased. But in majority of the institution, these financial resources and human resources has been drastically reduced. So that's one reason. So what that imply? When you reduce the financial and human resources, it means the access to quality knowledge resources are less. So what does that imply? That means the quality learning outcome is going to be hampered. So that's a whole lot of cycle that is being impacted. And also in the physical libraries, you have few challenges like many of the places where we have visited, we have seen they don't have space for stacking the resources. In few libraries, I have seen the like newly procured resources are lying on the corridors without even being unopened because they don't have space to stack them on, or they don't have space to uh, they don't have a proper policy to weed out these resources. And also we have challenges in terms of, say, for example, even if it's a very big library, they have limited resources. Say, for example, if it's a very good international publication or an international authored publication, the library may have 2-3 copies of the same, whereas hundreds of people might want to access the same resource. So accessing the same resource by multiple persons at the same time is again a challenge. And apart from this, we have all seen missing resources, hidden resources, damaged resources in the physical libraries. So these are all challenges that we have been facing. And also the government of India looked at all these challenges, and they also wanted to democratize the education. They wanted to give quality knowledge resource to every citizens, whether they are enrolled in IITs or at small college in rural parts of Madhya Pradesh. They wanted to give equal access to knowledge to every Indian citizen. So they created this National Digital Library of India, thanks to Professor Das and Professor Chakrabarti, whose brainchild. So we have actually heard from the horse's mouth. So Professor Das is the one of the co-principal investigator, and he is co-founder of the National Digital Library of India. And we are fortunate enough to have him today for this webinar. So as Professor Das mentioned, at NDLI, the heart of NDLI is only metadata. We only store metadata in our database. So there is a reason behind it. At this point in time, metadata is non-copyrighted, right? But there is a section of community, international community, which is also lobbying for making metadata copyrighted. So at this point in time, metadata is non-copyrighted. So we are safe to host metadata at our database. And then you may ask, like, since you are hosting only the metadata, how do you give the full text resources to the users? Here I'm going to show you a small diagram which shows. So imagine this central NDLI repository. This is the NDLI portal. Suppose if a researcher from uh, say Bhopal wants to access a resource published by Delhi University. Okay, so he comes to NDLI. He searches for the resources from Delhi University. Suppose if imagine Delhi University is one of the ideas, institutional digital repository, and they have shared the resources with us. Then if a researcher from Bhopal wants to access the resources from published by Delhi University, he comes to NDLI, searches for the resource, and if he finds it, what NDLI does is he redirects him to the IDR of Delhi University. And Delhi University's IDR verifies it's coming from an authentic source. If he is authenticated, Delhi University directly gives the full text resources to the researcher. So this is how NDLI operates in the real world. So as Professor Das mentioned, we have closer to 293 content contributors as of today. And you name any major educational research and publishing partners, both in India as well as out, we have them on board. But this is just a beginning. We have a huge unexplored territory that lying in front of us. Then what type of content we have? We have information and general works about 1 crore resources. Philosophy and psychology is about 5 lakh resources. Religion is about 2 lakh resources. Social science is about 45 lakh resources. Language 1 lakh resources. Natural sciences and mathematics 84 lakh resources. Technology again 1 crore resources. The arts, fine and decorative arts 4.5 lakh resources. Literature and rhetoric 7.8 lakh resources. History and geography is about 6.1 lakh resources. So Professor Das has already mentioned, we have a range of content. An article dominates the major chunk of the content database. So now I'm going to take you to very specifics. So kindly listen to the presentation because we have a quiz cum feedback form which we will circulate towards the end of the webinar. And so the questions will be from this presentation only. So for example, at NDLI, we have 5 different types of access options. One is open content, another one is NDL users content, and the third one is limited access, fourth one is subscribe, and the fifth one is restricted. So these are the 5 different types of access options. Suppose if it's open and NDLI, it means you have access to the full text resources. These 2 symbols denotes that content resource is a full text resource, whereas the limited resource, which means suppose if it's a 30-page article, out of which 10 page may be visible and the remaining 20 page may not be visible to the user. So that's the limited access content. And the fourth one is subscribed resources. Suppose if it's a IEEE, we only have the metadata. In your institution, if you have taken the subscription from IEEE, then you can access, if you click on IEEE resources, it will redirect you to the IEEE's database, and before that it will check whether this IP is bound with their database, and if you have subscribed to that IP, then it will give you the full text. So this is the fourth type, and the fifth one is restricted access. So this is, for example, IIT Jodhpur has this content only for their internal consumption, not for external use. So these are the 5 different types of access options that we have at NDLI. And how do you know whether it's an open or full text or of restricted access? So below every search result, you will see the first icon. So this is the access option icon, which you can see here. It's a green lock with open, which means it's a full text resource, whereas at the third you can see a red lock, which means it's a restricted resource. And the other 2 icons, like this is the language, and the next one is the content type. So now let's look at access options wise content. So open resources are about 2.75 crore resources, and then NDLI user resource content are about 77 lakh resources. So if you add these 2, 3.53 crore resources are full text resources. That is around 75% of our resources are free to use for educational and research purposes, not for commercial purposes. And what type, who is this content for? We have content for every age group, starting from school-going children to college-going youths, working professionals, academicians, researchers, entrepreneurs, and lifelong learners. Now, let's look at how to use NDLI. So, accessing NDLI is very simple. So, just go to Google and search for, or any other search engine for that matter, search for National Digital India. So the first URL you get, which is ndl.iitkgp.ac.in or ndl.gov.in. Both the URLs work. So you just click on the first URL. Once you click, this will take you to the home page of NDLI. So this is how the home page of NDLI looks like. So as Professor Das mentioned, you have the browse and search option available on the. Here you have the search box. Okay. So here you can enter the search keyword and then click on search. Then you will be able to see the results. And this is the during this time of lockdown, our team has actually classified the resources, and Professor Das has spoken about it extensively. So I don't want to get into it again. So now I will show you how to do a search. So before we get into it, you can actually change the language interface by clicking on the language tab available on the top. So here you can see this language. Once you click on this, you will be able to see the various Indian languages displayed here: English, Hindi, Gujarati, Marathi, Bangla, Kannada, Malayalam, Tamil. So all these languages are displayed. So you can choose the language of your choice, and then you can change the entire interface into your mother tongue. So currently I have chosen Hindi, and you can see the entire interface in Hindi. So you can actually search and browse using your own mother tongue. So that's the beauty of this tool. So here I have searched for a topic called Hindi literature. Okay. So I typed Hindi literature and then I clicked on search. Here on the left hand side, we have the filter options. So there are about 10 filter options available on the left and one filter option available on the right. So here I chose Bhasha and then I chose Hindi. I got 8,595 results on this topic of Hindi literature in the language of Hindi. Okay. Now let's look at the next topic, which is history of English literature. I searched for the topic called history of English literature, and then I chose the filter of subject category. I chose language and literature. I got 6,75,000 results. And I'm just going to read out what are the various filter options that are available. Access restriction, author, subject category, educational degree, difficulty level, educational level, file format, language, learning resource type, and source. So these are the 10 filters that are available on the left. On the right, we have a filter called content type. So you can actually narrow down your results depending on the content type requirement you have. And then I searched for a topic called construction techniques. So I wanted for education level of UG and PG, and also I wanted only video content. So what I did was I searched for construction techniques, chose educational level filter, and I chose UG and PG and video. I got 1,066 results. And then I searched for a topic called engineering mechanics. I wanted from a specific author called Sudarshan Iyengar. I chose Sudarshan Iyengar. I got 862 results. And then I searched for a topic called artificial intelligence. Now I have applied 3 filters. One is subject category, another one is access restriction, and the third one is source. So I wanted it from the source of MIT OpenCourseware. I got 64 results on this topic of artificial intelligence from MIT Open Source Courseware. And then I searched for a topic called Java programming, and I wanted only video lectures under the subject category of computer science and technology. I got 3,197 video lectures on this topic of Java programming. And then I searched for a topic called biotechnology, and I wanted it from the subject category of natural sciences and only videos. I chose video. I got 1,878 results. And then I searched for a topic called financial accounting. I wanted only open and full text resources, so I chose access restriction, open and NDLI, and I wanted video, so I chose video. I got 1,727 results. And then I searched for a topic called algebra and calculus. I wanted it from the source of Khan Academy only, so I chose Khan Academy. I got 10,000 results from this topic of algebra and calculus. So Professor Das has already mentioned about this study at home. So I just wanted to say that suppose if you want to access it, just go to, suppose if you want content only for school students, you can choose school. And also we have new tab called CBSE examination preparatory material. So these two you can choose. Suppose if you click on school, so this is will show various school related content. Suppose if you choose engineering, you will see the various engineering related tabs. So once you click on this, you will be able to see the content which you have. Now I'm going to show you how to open a resource or download a resource from NDLI. So I searched for a topic called research methodology, and I wanted it from the source of Lovely Professional University. Okay, I got 1438 results. Suppose if I want to open this first resource, okay, then what I need to do is I just have to click on this first resource. Once I click, it will take me to this page. Okay, on the top you have two tabs. First you click on the metadata tab, then this is the metadata. So this section is called the metadata. So the title of the resource, who is the source, what type of content it is, publisher. So this is the metadata. Suppose if you find these resources useful, then the second thing is you need to notice whether it is a full text or a partial access. So here it is showing open, which means it's a full text resource. And the third thing you need to notice whether you have logged in or not. I have already logged in, so it's showing my name. So if all the three are correct, then you just click on the content. Once you click on the content, the entire resource will get downloaded into your desktop or a laptop or your mobile phone, depending on the device you use. And then you can use it for educational purposes. Suppose if you have not logged in, so here you can see there is nobody has logged in. And then once you click on this content, this will ask you to please log in to view this content. Okay, then you have to click on this log, then it will take you to this pop-up window will appear. Okay, suppose if you remember your username and password, which is your email ID and password, just enter your email ID and password and captcha and then click on login. Then you will be able to download. Imagine you registered at a couple of months back or few years back, but you forgot your password. Then in that case, you can actually recover your password by click on account recovery button. Once you click on this account recovery button, this pop-up window will appear. So here you have, it will ask you for the registered email ID. You have to enter the registered email ID. Then you submit. Once you submit, you will get a password reset email with the process explained. You just have to follow the process and then reset your password. Imagine you have never heard about, this is the first time you are hearing about NDLI and you have never used NDLI. Then in that case, you have to first register to get maximum out of NDLI. So what you have to do is click on register. Once you click on register, this registration form will open. It will ask you, there are 4 details which are mandatory. One is your full name, then is your email ID, and one is your password, and the fourth one is your confirm password. And the rest of the details like date of birth, gender, you can just fill it up and then save. Once you submit, you will get the full text. You will get a confirm verification email. You just have to verify your email, and then you can come back and log in with email and password, and then you can download the resources. So this is how the video lecture will look like in our portal. So for using NDLI, you need to remember 2 important. One is the search keyword. You should choose the right search keyword without having to make any spelling mistake. You should remember the correct spelling. And the second important thing you need to remember is the various filter options that you have. So I'm going to talk about some 8 important filters that are available that you may want to know. The first important filter is access restriction. Suppose if you want only the full text resources, just click on open and NDLI. Then you will get only the full text resources. And the second filter option is author. You searched on a topic and suppose you want only resources from Voizang. Just click on Voizang, then you will get resources only from Voizang. And the third filter option is subject category. Depending on the search keyword, you have to choose the subject category. This is classified as per the DDC's classification method. So you have to follow the based on the search keyword, you have to choose the subject category. And the fourth filter option is file format. Suppose if you want only PDF files, just click here PDF. Suppose if you want only MP3 files, click on MP3. MP4. So similarly, you can narrow down the filter options. And the fifth filter option is language. As Professor Das mentioned, we have over 300 content resources on over 300 languages, both Indian as well as international languages. So suppose if you want resources only from Hindi, so just go here and then type Hindi, you will get Hindi option. Just you have to choose Hindi, you will get resources only in Hindi. And the sixth filter option is learning resource type. Suppose if you want audiobook, just choose audiobook. Suppose if you want newspaper, just choose newspaper. There are about at least 60 different types of learning resource types available. So you can just browse to see what are the different learning resource types available. And the seventh filter option is source. So as we mentioned, we have closer to 293 content source partners. All of them are listed here. So based depending on your subject area or your requirement, you can choose your content partner. And the eighth filter option, which is available only in the desktop application, which is the content type. Suppose if you want only video lectures, choose here. Suppose if you want only audio files, then you can just choose audio. So these are the filter options that are available. And Professor Das has already mentioned we have a mobile app in both Android as well as iOS. Now I will show you how to use the NDLI Android mobile app. So first you have to install, suppose if you are using an Android phone, go to Play Store and then search the entire topic, National Digital Library of India. Type the entire topic. Then you have to look for three things: the logo, which should be NDLI, and the name, National Digital Library of India, and the publisher, National Digital Library of India. All the three should be National Digital Library of India. Then you can install the app. Once you install, you have to click on opening this app. Once you open, this is how the home screen looks like. Okay. So suppose if you want to search in the mobile app, you just have to click on this search icon. This lens, this is the search icon. Once you click, this search box will appear. So in the desktop application, search box is available by default on this top, whereas in the mobile app, if you want to open the search box, just click on the search icon, then you will get the search box. You enter the search keywords. Here I have entered the search keyword called Uttar Pradesh, and then from the keypad itself, you click on search, then it will display the results. So it shows 41,573 results available on this topic of Uttar Pradesh. Suppose if you want to filter in the desktop application, you had the filter options, 10 filter option on the left and 1 filter option on the right. But whereas in the mobile app, if you want to filter, you just have to click on this orange color icon. Once you click on this orange icon, you will be able to see all the filter option we saw on the desktop application will be listed on the top. So you can actually scroll down to see the various filter options. So suppose if I want the resources only from the source of Aligarh Muslim University, you go to source and then choose Aligarh Muslim University and then apply. Here I've got 199 results on this topic of Uttar Pradesh from Aligarh Muslim University. So this is how you need to use the NDLI mobile app. So now we will get into this Google versus NDLI. How Google is NDLI is different from Google. So we will have a quick example. Say for example, imagine there is a girl called Payal who is studying in class 8 and her native language is Hindi, and she wants to know about magnetism in the subject of physics. And similarly, there is a guy called Shamik who wants to apply for a PhD position on the topic of magnetism. Now both of them have gone to NDLI. They have gone to Google and they searched for this topic called magnetism, and they got 1.89 crore results, same results for both of them. And then they came to NDLI and they searched for the same topic. They got 11,16,000 results. What Boyle did is she applied two filters. Educational level, she chose 5th to 8th standard, and then she chose the language of Hindi, and she got 8 results only. And whereas Shamik, he wanted only career and technical papers, he got 219 results. So imagine where is 1.89 crore and where is 219 and 8 results. So now let's see what is the major difference between Google and NDLI with this example. See, Google is a brilliant tool. We don't have any competition with Google. They do their job brilliantly. That's a great tool that the humankind has got. It has its own processes to work. So let's understand how Google functions. The moment you put the topic called magnetism, it will go around the World Wide Web, and wherever this topic called magnetism is there, it will pull the results and display it in front of you. But in this process, Google can't distinguish whether it's coming from an authentic source or an unauthentic source, whether it is a reliable information or a fake information, whether it is an educational content or a non-educational content, whether it's relevant for Shamik or Payal, it can't distinguish. For Google, everyone is equal and it will pull the results. But whereas at NDLI, each of these results, each of these resources, our resources are curated educational resources, because our partners are primarily in the educational or research and publishing industry only. And second, the major difference is you can actually narrow down these results by applying various filter options. And in Google also you can do it by doing an advanced filter option, but that is not educational related. They are all very generic in nature. All these advanced filter options are very generic in nature, whereas in our filter option, they are specifically meant for educational purposes only. And the third reference is you can modify your search by various content type. And the fourth one is national licensing. So these are the major difference between Google and NDLI. Now we will quickly see how to start an NDLI club. So the objective of NDLI club is twin. One is the primary objective is to promote the culture of reading. That's the primary objective. And in this process, we also have an objective of spreading this knowledge resources of NDLI to every Indian citizen. So that is the twin objective of NDLI club. So now let's see how to achieve these two objectives. So first is you need to create an NDLI club with a formal structure. So for that, what you need to do is identify at least one student from each class and one faculty member from each department, with librarian or a faculty member or an NSS coordinator as the ex officio secretary and principal as the ex officio chairman of the club. So you get this list approved by the head of the institution, and then you have to apply in our registration, NDLI club registration. This is a temporary arrangement we have done. Our full-fledged NDLI club portal will come up very soon. So this is how the NDLI current temporary form looks like. You just have to enter the basic information about the institution and then attach the list approved by your head of the institution and then submit. Once you submit this form, it will come to us and we will do a backend verification of this your institution, and then we issue a certificate of registration which is valid for 1 year. So within that 1 year, you have to do two steps. One is register all the students and faculty members within 30 days of receipt. That's the step one. And the second step is you need to conduct at least 10 reading or knowledge related activities within the remaining time period. So now let's see how to do the step one, which is registration of all the students and faculty members. So for registration, you can do it in two modes. One is individual mode, wherein the individuals come in and then they register on our portal. And the second one is bulk registration. Bulk registration is like, I will show you how to do it. For higher educational institution, bulk registration is advisable, because when NAC or UGC or AICT or NBA comes for accreditation, that time they will ask you to fill the form asking for your digital resources. Suppose in that, if you have mentioned NDLI as your digital resources you are using, then they will ask you to produce a certificate from NDLI, as well as they will ask you the number of students registered and number of students activated their account. Suppose if you registered your students as individuals, you may not be able to provide this statistics. But whereas if you have registered them through bulk registration, you will be able to provide them with this information. If you provide this information, and remember, it's not the registered numbers matter, it's the number of people who have activated an account that matters. Okay, so you have to get all the students or faculty members registered should be activated and started using the NDLI portal. So I will show you how to do the bulk registration. So what you need to do is you need to capture 3 details from each of the students and faculty members. The personal email ID, I'm repeating, the personal email ID on the first column, and the second column is their first name, and the third column their last name. So I just put my email ID, my first name and the last name. Similarly, my colleagues Ananya Guha and Rajendra Singh's email ID, and then you have to save it in CSV format. So even if you don't know how to do it, just send it in Excel format. Our team will take care of it. So you have to send it to this email ID, which is ndl-support@iitkgp.ac.in, with a copy to my email ID, which is vignesh@ndl.gov.in or vigneshjn@gmail.com. So within 48 hours, all the list you have given will be getting an verification email. Okay, so you just have to click on the URL. By default, their email ID is the username, and they will be given a temporary password. Okay, just have to enter the temporary password, and then they have to set the password for themselves. Once they set, they are good to use. And for individual registration, they have to go to the home page. On the top, you will see the login option. Just click on this login, and then this register button. Just click on the register. Once you click on register button, the registration form will open. As I mentioned, 4 details which are mandatory, and remaining details you can fill, or you can fill it later as well. My suggestion is fill all the details, because it may not take not more than 5 minutes for you to fill this entire form and then submit. So this is a one-time process. Once you submit, you will get an verification email. Just verify that email, then your account will activated. And the kind of activities, the second step, what are the kind of activities that you can conduct? It could be a lecture series, or a quiz competition, or a storytelling session, a go fish session, film screening, drawing competition, role play, writing competition, make a space, or a debate. So these are just indicating, and you can also come up with your own list of activities, which has to be reading and knowledge related, or an inter-college activities on competition can also be conducted. So as you conduct each activity, can upload it on our monthly activity report. So this is the URL. Once you upload, it will come to us. And these are some of the activities being conducted by various NDLA clubs. Here the NDLA club book review competition, and brilliant people have done brilliant activities. And in fact, one of the institutions have conducted 42 reading related activities within a year. And whereas some institutions, they said even achieving 10 activities would be tough for them, but whereas one institution has conducted 42 reading related activities within a year of establishing the club. And also we have starting to recognize the best performing NDLA clubs at the district and state and national level. And the Government of India will soon issue a circular on this very soon. And also we started conducting reading Olympiads. So we have conducted a district level reading Olympiad already, and soon we will be coming up with the state and national level reading Olympiad. So this is what I wanted to share it with all of you. So now I have a quiz, some feedback form ready with me, which I can share it with all of you. But now at this point in time, I think I will leave it with Dr. Sandeep and Dr. Prabhat to guide us up to the next process. Over to Dr. Sandeep.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vignesh, for a wonderful, presentation, telling out all the detailings about this. And we also thank you for talking about models of NDLI, top contributors for NDLI contents, type of contents, and total number of the total. Of course, this is a ongoing process. Range of the contents. You also talked about access options and various refined search options, and language-wise various Indian languages. And you also covered NDLI website registration. I think it is very much important, especially for those who are willing to join and make their users a part of NDLI. And you also covered about NDLI versus Google, and you also mentioned about the NDLI cloud. So we thank you so much, Dr. Vignesh. It was a wonderful presentation. You covered almost point and all the points. Now as per the program schedule, it is my duty to deliver a concluding remarks over here. So we, the citizens of India, are very proud to have a NDLI. NDLI is one of the most successful projects in India. As we all know, NDLI is a project of MHRD and is mentored by IIT Kharagpur. So NDLI actually is a delight for us, and let all of us make a best use of this NDLI. NDLI mobile app is also very useful, and I'm the one who is using it for last few years. And I have one humble request, humble submission to NDLI and also to Professor Partha, that NDLI also need to connect with the school student, especially the target student can be from class 9 to 12th standards, and also the college going students, especially those in the rural areas. And as we know, information is the key in this ICT era. And NDLI is the best platform where we get most of our desired academic information. So, Professor Partha, we thank you so much. We thank you for having NDLI regional centers. We know there are regional centers in IIT Guwahati, Northeast, and there is one more regional center in Anna Centenary Library. So, sir, we have one request that if it is so possible, you may also open one regional centers. Of course, NDLA club we have talked about. So, one regional center can be opened in central part of India, and in that case, Madhya Pradesh, may be preferred, because such kind of centers can also be opened in rural part, so that will really boost this part of country. So, once again, we thank you, NDLI and Professor Partha, Dr. Vignesh for joining us. And now I request Dr. Seema to please take few questions from the chat box. Dr. Seema, over to you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Good evening, all of you. I have few questions for Das, sir.
Yes,
hello.
yes, Dr. Seema, before I take the questions, I wanted to make a couple of comments on the concluding remarks. May I do that?
Yes, sir. Yes,
please go ahead.
Okay. So naturally, I mean, thank you so much for the kind words. I would actually appreciate if you could write it down and send to me for two reasons. One is we would like to put it up on our website because MPLA is saying nice things about us. So
Definitely,
feels us good.
Yes.
And the second, in terms of your thoughts about the regional center, it is good to put it on record because just to tell you, incidentally, Dr. Vignesh is the head of that Anna Centenary South Center.
Okay,
so
sir.
he's been driving that, and Dr. Tamal Guho, at
Yes, sir.
IIT Guwahati, who is doing the Northeast. So before this COVID struck, actually in March itself, myself and Dr. Vignesh were supposed to do a physical workshop in Chennai, where we were trying to work out a national level plan for having more centers and how to have kind of a spoken have model to reach out to more people in terms of NDLI. Because of COVID, that all have got stalled. So certainly we would like to record your good intentions of hosting some of these activities. In terms of connecting to schools and colleges, you probably missed out in the morning today itself. We had a major school event where it was primarily with the CBSE schools and stakeholders. So about 800 school principals and school administrators took part, and it was also participated by Director CBSE, Dr. Bishwajit Shaha and others. So we are certainly going very actively in terms of spreading to schools. Similar plans of going to the colleges through AICT and UGC are in the process, but COVID has slowed down a couple of things. So, I mean, just since a couple of suggestions you made, so I just wanted everybody to know that some of these are already under the action plan, and we will try to take them forward. And please, if you can send that concluding remarks as a write-up to us, we would like to carry that.
Thank you so much, sir. I would like to add, sir, here that I was also at IIT Kharagpur with Dr. Sutradhar during 2004 to 11 for almost 6 years. So I have worked.
I know Dr. Sutradhar keeps talking about it.
Yes, thank you.
I was in the middle in the industry, so I missed out on that. So from 98 to 2011, I was in the industry.
No, 2004 to 2011, sir.
Yeah, so that is the time I was not there in IIT.
Okay, okay, sir. Okay.
88 to 98, I was a faculty. Then again, 2011, I joined back. In between 13 years, I was in the industry. I used to head a company. So I didn't meet you there, but Dr. Sutradhar talked about it. Yes. I think we'll go back to Seema, madam, and take that question.
Dr. Seema?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Question is, how many countries have NDI kind of setup? NDL kind of setup. Sorry, sir.
Okay, this is a very difficult question, madam, because or rather it has a little complicated answer. The answer could be just us, or the answer could be many, in the way that if you look at NDLI is a platform for providing education to a large group of people. Now, this is on one side. The other side is naturally a digital infrastructure like NDLI and the associated mobile network and all those services need a certain level of advances in the country itself. So if you look around the world, the countries in the so-called first world, they have solved their education problem much earlier. They have a lot of physical as well as digital ways of education. So they don't use their digital library primarily for education. They use their digital library primarily for storing culture, heritage, those kind of things. Like I'm talking of United States, I'm talking of countries in Europe. We work with at least 10 countries in Europe at present. Australia, New Zealand, these are the countries we partner with. So I know very well about this, and the United States. On the other side, there are several countries, say in Southeast Asia or in Africa, who do not have anything like this, but they do not have the infrastructure to do such a thing also. So they need such things for education, but they have not been able to afford the finances as well as the knowledge power to create a similar structure. So on NDLI's outreach program, we have also slowly started working with them. Earlier in the month, we did a webinar with a university in Nigeria, where 40 Nigerian universities also participated. And we have made them open offer that if they want, they can use our resources and our services for the benefit of students of Nigeria. So that is a kind of current status. Our neighboring countries, none of them have anything similar to it. We are in touch with all of them.
But I heard, sir, neighboring countries are very keen, and I think they are very much, taking this as a project NDLI, and they are very willing to have like country like Bangladesh. I heard they are very much.
Bangladesh, we are in strong touch. We are in strong touch with Dhaka University, BRAC University, East West University, Rajshahi University. They are all very keen that we work together. Now, whether they would like to use NDLI in its own form or they would like us to help them create their own national digital library, we are not sure. But we had discussions in December last. We had a workshop and we had an international workshop, and they all were present there. Unfortunately, beyond that, all this lockdown has closed everything. But certainly, we will continue to work together. So in that, we are working with Bhutan, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and Maldives. These are the countries with which we have made offers to directly work on similar digital library projects.
Okay, sir. Seema?
Sir, next question is, how NDLI makes sure that embargo policy for academic content?
Embargo policy in the sense? What is the embargo policy?
Embargo policy for academic content.
I do not know what is that embargo policy. I mean, what do you mean by embargo policy?
Probably, sir, I think question in the sense that suppose NDLI harvest any open access content, so how it makes sure that that content embargo period is over? Maybe I think in that content, I guess.
Okay. So
maybe copyright issue, I think.
Okay, so you are talking about you're talking about the embargo in terms of publisher imposed embargo. If it is an open access content, then there is no question of embargo. We are talking about some kind of a hybrid publication, like say Springer Journal publishes something in a hybrid journal, and then they have an embargo for 12 months. That for 12 months it cannot be used in open access. After 12 months, it can be used in open access, right? So it has to be that kind of. Now, usually, what happens in these cases is such embargo contents come from publishers who have their own access rights. So, as I said, if you note carefully, we do not carry any content ourselves. The contents are coming from the source. So all that we have done is we have taken the metadata from them and we are helping people locate that content. But once located, the request goes to the source. So if embargo is there, it must be enforced at the source, not by us. So the onus is on the publisher to enforce the embargo if they want to do it. So we do not as such face any issue on that. Of course, we try to, when we integrate a source, of course, we try to make sure that the source is authentic. So there are a number of, as we all know, there are a number of sources which collate content without permission from the original content provider and so on. So any source who is known to have those practices, we do not integrate with them. As
So,
simple as that.
Professor Partha, I have one question similar to this, myself, Sandeep Pathak. Let's say,
Yes.
suppose, for example, we know self-praise journals. So, self-praise content, generally after 6 month of period, it is embargo free. There is no restriction. So, in that case, publishers himself is giving metadata to NDLI, or NDLI is getting from that metadata, or this kind of practice is not happening.
With publishers, we always get the
Self-praise, self-praise.
with any publisher, if we integrate, we always get the metadata from the publisher and we have an agreement. Otherwise, we don't integrate.
Okay, sir.
Because of the simple reason, Sandeep ji, you understand, is it is a national project. It's a national identity concern, right? So if some publisher would come and say that my things have wrongly been taken away, then it's a national shame.
Yes.
Right? We cannot afford to do that. So
Yes.
there are several good collections which we have not been able to put together because either the publisher has not agreed to put that, or they have kind of given a in principle agreement, but they have not given us the data.
Okay, sir.
So if I may say so, under the ESS terms, you are familiar with ESS, like
Yes, sir.
through which
Yes, sir.
all major subscriptions are happening. In terms of the ESS agreement that happened in 2018-2019, all journals that the publishers had put on that list were subscribed. They were supposed to give metadata for us to integrate, but some publishers have, some have not.
Yes, sir.
So we'll have to live with that.
Okay. Seema?
Yes, sir. What are the future plans of NDLI?
The future plans of NDLI are multiple. We are primarily on one side, it is to increase the inclusivity. That is, we want to have more and more verticals which are useful, particularly in domains like engineering, medical, law, school. These are the 4-5 primary that we want to increase our inclusivity of content. Second is in terms of creating more contents which are not available through reliable sources. Like I showed that NDLI tutor for joint entrance examination. So actually there was a parallel question in the chat box which I responded to, that we are actually working on creating variety of contents for different competitive examinations, both of the entrance time, like the joint entrance, NEET, CLAT, so on, and also of the recruitment kind, like UPSC and so on. So we are creating collections from authentic sources or some by our own SMEs, so that we can have more useful collections created for the users. So this is inclusivity creation at the total. Third is we are working very actively on collaborators. That this is time has come where there is a sizable collection, but the value can come only when it is more effectively used. So we are trying to collaborate with different institutions, individuals, teachers, students, parents, and so on. Naturally, to organize that, we are having this engagement model of NDLI Club. The NDLI Club is the extension outreach wing through which we can do that more. So these are some of the core areas. Besides that, the future contains a whole lot of, a big part of NDLI that I did not talk of is the research, because not all the solutions that are done was off the shelf, available off the shelf. But I'll just give a simple example to integrate 4.8 crore content in this time period, which happened in about less than 5 years time. We have a team of about 30 library science people working on this. If you do a simple arithmetic, it turns out that on a working day, an individual does about 1,000 records every day, right? Well, which is, you will understand it's an impossible task of doing 1,000 metadata records every day. Now, this has been possible by making a whole lot of automation assistance in the system, so that typically someone can do 10 and someone in NDLI is doing 1,000. So there's a 100-fold productivity increase. So all these automation come through research. So there is a whole lot of research that happens. I mean, NDLI has more than 30 research, scholarly publications from NDLI in different library science and digital library technology. So these are some of the other aspects that we want to work on. And outreach, certainly we already talked of in India as well as beyond India. Outreach is another. So these I would say are the primary future areas that we want to focus on in the next 1 to 1.5 years.
Thank
Does
you,
that
sir.
answer your
Thank
question,
you so
madam?
much, sir. No, sir, no. I don't have no question for you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Next question is for Vignesh, sir. Hello? Hello, Vignesh, sir?
Yes,
Yeah.
Dr. Singh.
Is NDLI club for schools also? Question is from Manoj Kumar Sharma. He's asking,
So-
is the NDLI club for schools also?
Yes, as Professor Das mentioned, so we are going very like we are focusing highly on schools because once we start from the school level itself, the usage of NDLA will be lifelong. So we are the NDLA club can be opened at schools. In fact, we have 150 NDLA clubs as of today, and out of which at least some 10% of them are run by schools. So yes, it's open for schools also to conduct start NDLA clubs.
Okay, sir. Next question is from Beena Rajput. Who is authentic person for generate monthly activity report?
Activity report of what? The NDLA clubs or the overall activity? The
Overall
institutional.
activity, I think. Actually, it is
Okay,
not clear
so
here.
okay, so for NDLA club, they can write to me. So I have already given my email ID, so they can write to me. So I have the access for institutional activity. So there is a common email ID which is ndl support at iitkgp.ac.in. So kindly write to, or you can write both the emails to me. So I will connect you with my colleagues who can help in getting the information or the data.
Okay, sir. And next question is from Prabhat Badhani. How will the librarian know that individual has activated the accounts at NDLI?
Okay, so if you have already given an account, say for example, before 1 year we were giving institutional ID. So from your institutional ID itself, suppose if you are a nodal person, you can upload the number of users, and there you will be able to see number of people registered and number of people activated. So you can actually download the report from the dashboard given to you. Suppose if you have if you are doing it afresh, then you have to send an email to us to this email ID of ndl-support at iitkgp.ac.in. Then we will download the report at the backend and then we will give you the access.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank
Now
you.
I request to Dr. Prabhat Pandey, please conclude the session. Sir.
Yes. Thank you, Seema. Thank you so much, Professor P.P. Das, Joint Principal Investigator, NDLI India, to address all the issues related to NDLI, their services during COVID-19 as well as regular services. And I also thank you so much, Dr. Vignesh Sorna Mohan, how to best use of NDLI resources. And he will regularly, we all keep in touch with him to use all the resources of NDLI. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation and guiding the LIS professionals regarding use of NDLI resources. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you all the participants who joined the session and benefited from this great task. I also thank to my MPLA team, especially Dr. Sandeep Pathak, Seema Dubedi, Rajesh Kathane, Manoj Mehar, Sudhir Gupta, and all the Santosh Kori, and all the members of MPLA, because without our team support, we can't do anything. Thank you, one and all. Thank you, everyone, to
And
join the
Prabhasar,
session.
before we close, I request all the participants to please on your video for a group photograph. So please on your video, so we can have a one group photograph, and then we'll end the session in 1 minute time. Please, participant, if you are hearing me, please on your video.
Please on our video and please submit your feedback form. Dr. Vignesh sent a feedback form. So I request all the participants please submit feedback form as well as on your video to group photograph. Thank you.
So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Professor Das, for joining us. Thank you so much, Prabhat sir. Thank you, Dr. Vignesh. Thank you, all the participants. Thank you so much. It was
Thank you,
pleasure
everyone.
meeting you all. Thank you so much. I'm
Thank
going
you.
to now end the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.